The central Alberta summer resort town of Sylvan Lake, home to about 15,000 people, and soon 2 craft breweries. Both Undercurrent and Snake Lake Brewing are racing to open early in the new year.
Okay, so what are we looking at here?
This is our tasting room. So obviously the first place you walk in is the bar. So we got to start from one end.
Adam Nakbar and his partners have spent a decade working in the oil and gas industry. They see their chance to get out of the patch by betting big on beer.
We've sold off all the stuff we didn't need in our lives. I've quit my job, we've remortgaged houses, and we're all in. Everything we've got or everything we've had is poured into this.
Everything they have, plus a big loan from the bank. Altogether, they're in for about $2 million. One of hundreds of new independent breweries opening up across the country.
It's something we get to do. Make or break it, it's up to us.
In the last 5 years, the number of licensed breweries in Canada has pretty much doubled. They're trying to cash in on a huge spike in craft beer sales. In Canada's $7 billion beer market, there are only 2 areas of growth: imports and craft. And some craft companies are reporting a 500% growth in revenues over the last 5 years. In Alberta, the number of new breweries has skyrocketed. Here, there used to be a rule that said you had to make at least 500,000 liters of beer before you could sell commercially. But in 2013, the provincial government scrapped that law. Suddenly, pretty much anyone with a passion and a pint glass could get into the business.
It's really catching, and I think it is an industry that's going to keep growing, and it won't oversaturate for quite a while, I believe.
But could the newest of these would-be beer barons be a bit late to the game?
Kapow! Here's all these breweries just like that.
Toolshed Brewing's Graham Sherman is one of the forerunners of Alberta's craft beer movement. He and his partner grew their operation from an actual shed in his backyard to a 1 million-liter production facility. These days, there's so much interest in his industry, Sherman holds seminars he calls So You Want to Start a Brewery. They attract hundreds of people.
First question is typically, how much money do you make?
The answer is not as much as you might think. It costs $200,000 a month to keep this operation running. And in the early days, Toolshed was on the brink of bankruptcy more than once. But it looks like all fun and foamy profits. It feels like a gold rush.
Yeah.
It feels like a .com, like everybody's just diving into this.
Yeah.
Is that the feeling right now in Alberta?
It is. Yeah, it is the feeling. So I was very fortunate that when I started, I had the right product in the right province, the right time.
The timing.
Timing is everything.
This river of new suds is running into a logjam downstream. The number of new bars and restaurants hasn't kept pace, and there aren't enough taps to go around.
The growth of this market is so compressed. I don't know how each of these breweries can find the taps to keep alive.
As proof, Sherman takes me out for one of his beers at one of his favorite bars.
It seems to be a new brewery every week. They come in and they're ready to sell and everything. I'm like, well, I'd love to put more taps on. I don't have room.
The flow of all that new beer coming on stream is raising red flags far beyond Alberta.
So if you were ever contemplating starting a brewery, this is the kind of competitive environment that you're going to be entering.
Larry Plummer teaches entrepreneurship at the Ivy School of Business. Today's subject matter, craft beer, and a lesson on supply and demand, with so much new beer pouring into the Canadian market.
We're actually starting to achieve or reach kind of peak beer or market saturation. So it says over here that overall beer consumption has grown 0% recently. Okay? And that data actually shows that total beer consumption has actually declined.
That's right, Canadians aren't actually drinking more beer overall. In fact, we're drinking less. The explosive growth in craft has come from siphoning off drinkers from mainstream brands, who still have about 90% of the market. Back in the heart of Alberta's beer boom, instead of stealing market share from the big guys, craft brewers are finding they're starting to compete with each other.
We'll go into a bar and say, you know, we want a tap, and they'll say, sure, you can have that one. It happens to be a craft brewery that we don't want to steal from, but it's one of those things.
Sweet. It's about time.
20 minutes down the highway,
Those are pretty cool.
I've seen those bar graphs. There's always a concern for whether you're going to get your beer on the shelf, if your beer is going to end up on taps.
the owners of Snake Lake Brewing know what they're up against. But this is about so much more than just money.
Oh, it's beer. It's so awesome to be part of something that makes people happy.
Hard to argue with that. And yet with that dream comes the reality that when it comes to craft beer in Canada, we may be reaching the tipping point. Aaron Saltzman, CBC News, Calgary.